Welcome to a brand new episode of the Bull Take Podcast. I'm Austin Hill. With me, as always, Austin Wader. And we're back talking college football action. Delayed a few days, but we're back on track, ready to talk. No time like the present to talk about college football, especially with the kind of weekend we had. Look, college football is starting to do its college football thing, and we're starting to see some fun finishes, some fun results. And whether you like it or not, whether you think it's the right move or not, maybe a justifiable firing occurring this
Yeah.
weekend, even if you're not the biggest fan of it. I know I have some pros and some cons to it. I get it
Yep.
and I don't get it. But we'll talk about that in a moment. Let's start out with just the game action that we've got this weekend. And look, it started early into the weekend, Friday night. I looked at the tickets for this game. $35 for some pretty decent seats. I almost went, but I would not have been able to get there in time, unfortunately. We've got to work. We've got to have jobs to keep ourselves afloat, and that ended up costing me. But USF dominated in a big time American matchup with a 63-36 win over North Texas. And look, this is one of those big matchups we've been talking about, getting excited about this American Conference play when we're going to start seeing some of these top dogs in the conference face off for a team that's probably inevitably going to inherit that group of five college football playoff spot, that unofficial, official group of five college football playoff spot. Um, and in this one, USF made it no contest. They're keeping themselves at the top and saying, hey, you still got to beat us if you want to get into this college football playoff. And I think Byron Brown and company looked great. Look, he was early on my player of the week list. Obviously, we'll get into it later. He didn't finish it, but he had a phenomenal performance this weekend. And USF really not missing a beat after that Miami loss. They're really showing, if anything, that they've learned from it. And again, you keep having these dominant wins in conference play. We're not just talking about a 12 seed. We're talking about a much higher seed. Probably not a first round bye, but we could seriously be getting to the argument of somebody having to go down to South Florida to have to play a college football playoff game.
Yeah, this was great. I kind of like that it was on Friday night so it could have its own spotlight so everyone could watch it.
Yes.
Great first half. It was 21-21 at halftime. Both offenses were clicking. And then my gosh, in the blink of an eye, the third quarter happened. South Florida touchdown, North Texas interception, South Florida touchdown, North Texas fumble, South Florida touchdown. In the blink of an eye, it was 42-21, and we're like, wait a minute, what the heck just happened here? We were just tied. What happened? That third quarter blew it wide open, and South Florida was able to take control from there. Like you mentioned, this American Conference is going to go down to the wire. I don't know what's going to happen. I will say this though: South Florida at Memphis next weekend. Not this upcoming weekend, but the next is going to be fun. Hey, college game day. I would highly recommend going there. I think that'd be a fun college game day atmosphere if they went to Memphis for that. But North Texas, they still got plenty of games on the schedule, and so do South Florida. But this is an early sign, like you said, of South Florida's be like, hey, guess what? Not only was our strength of schedule for non-conference great with some wins, yeah, now we're whooping a team that's supposed to keep competing with us. So y'all got to catch us if you want any chance to be in that group of five representative.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Right into our next game here. Another top tier, top 25 Big Ten clash. We had Ohio State going head to head with Illinois here in Champaign. And look, this first half was not great for Illinois. The defense started out pretty strong. They were actually holding Ohio State pretty well. But this Illini offense was just slow to get going in this game. Only 3 points in the first half and 13 in the second half. They just could not hang with Ohio State, even though you look at it 10, 10, 7, 7. It wasn't huge scoring quarters by any means. The defense was trying its best to hold Ohio State, but when your offense is getting 0, 3, 7, and 6, you're almost never going to be able to compete.
Yeah, I'll say like this storyline of the game. Ohio State had turned three takeaways into 21 points. There's your difference in the ball game right there. This Ohio State defense continues to be elite. Again, it feels weird saying that about a Matt Patricia defense. It feels really
Yeah,
weird saying that, but they've been the best defense in college football by far this year. It's not even been close. So credit where credit's due. But let's also give the Illini some credit, Austin. They are the first team this year to score double-digit points against Ohio State. So that's a positive you can take
Yeah.
out of that game because no one had scored double-digit points so far this year until that game. So good for them. But I mean, the Ohio State defense dominant was the story again. Offense really just, as long as they didn't screw up, game was theirs.
Yeah, completely agree. It was tough for bet of the week as well. They were right there,
Right.
pretty much
Yep.
on the doorstep of this bet of the week all game, and just couldn't quite close it in. Um, but yeah, it's just kind of tough because the Illinois defense really, I felt like, locked in after that Indiana loss. And again, not that they played terribly, especially compared to that Indiana game and what Indiana did, what we'll talk about a little bit later. But just the offense not being there when they really needed them to kind of has really hurt Illinois twice now this season. But then we had Pitt continuing some of this momentum that they've started to build up with a win over number 25 Florida State, who skid and now turns to 3 games. A team that we were so kind of high on coming into the season, thought they made a lot of the right moves. And it's just another close finish in ACC play where Florida State looked like they were going to be a team to kind of challenge at the top and maybe get that rematch with Miami where maybe they're able to kind of rise to the occasion and put it together. And now with 3 losses in a row, you're kind of wondering where does Florida State stand, and are they going to be able to turn this season around and get out ahead of this thing before we end up 3-6 in a hurry?
Yeah. For those of you who are keeping track, it has now been 387 days since Florida State's last ACC win, which was against Cal. Yes, don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, that was a conference game last year.
Yeah,
But for this game, yeah, the Pitt offense, it kind of makes you question with the new quarterback, the freshman coming in, Mason Heinschettel, or I think something like that. I'd have to double check the name pronunciation. But since he's come in, the offense has been really impressive for him. Kind of makes you wonder if they had started him the whole year, could we be looking at a 6-0 Pitt instead of 4 and
agreed.
2? But for Florida State, you talk about now 3 losses in a row. They're at Stanford this weekend, so hopefully that's something that can finally end that streak. But let's say it like it is. This Mike Norvell, if they lose to Stanford, we could be seeing some changes. I don't think they'll lose to Stanford, but they could. And I'll get to it, man, when we talk about Penn State. This might be the craziest coaching carousel this offseason we've seen in college football in a long time. If some teams make moves that like we're expecting to see, if some of these results continue. But rough for Florida State. We'll see if they can get on track and get an ACC win this weekend.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. Then we have the Hogs hanging around against Tennessee. A late surge, but ultimately they're going to fall short, 34-31. Um, Man, it looked like Tennessee was going to run away with this game for a little bit, and then to challenge back in that fourth quarter, 14 points to the Tennessee 7 when they were shut out in the third quarter, and Tennessee scored 10. Again, they really challenged hard to kind of make it a game, but at the end of the day, they came up just short. But I think you saw some life and a different look to this team than you did before. This is Petrino's first game, made the big changes to the defensive staff. I'm not going to say give him the job. I certainly don't think that's the right direction to go. But it certainly feels like kind of new breath, new life for this Razorback team. They look a little bit better and a little bit more competitive than they have really all season in these bigger games.
Yeah. Now, it's hard to say, especially since the last time we saw him was the Notre Dame one. It kind of felt like the same team to me because you look at the storyline of the game. 3 lost fumbles in this game, 3 turnovers
That's true.
compared to 0 for Tennessee. The turnover battle cost them, and they got down 34-17. And then when the defense needed to get a stop late to give them a chance, they couldn't do it. So it kind of felt like the same storyline as some of the other games earlier this year. But again, we'll see where it goes the rest of the season. Again, A&M comes to town, so we'll see what they can do with that this weekend. They still got to play multiple top 25 opponents. Tennessee, look, we're going to talk more about Tennessee later when they have a big time showdown on Saturday night that we'll talk about. This defense for Tennessee has me very concerned for their playoff hopes. This
Yeah.
defense really has not been good, especially against the pass. Their passing defense has not been great this year. So that kind of gives me some concern for Tennessee going down the line.
Yeah, and you think about kind of the great defense that they had last year, guys like James Pierce kind of helping man this team. Yeah, they feel like they've lost quite a bit on that defensive side of the ball. And they're going to need that as we continue on into conference play here, especially in the SEC. Bama wins a nail biter versus Mizzou 27-24. And for people like me tuning in at home, this was a treat to watch kind of these quarterbacks duel. I thought, this was going to be a big test for Prabula and everything he was going to be able to do. And I feel like for the most part, he kind of lived up to the expectation in a big SEC game. Obviously, they did come up short, but I thought he looked pretty good in this offense. Didn't get it done when they needed it most, but I still think they looked good. And this was a good learning experience for them against Alabama. But the Tide, again, we talk about it. Ty Simpson's playing great football right now. Jam Miller really helping him out in some big spots. And this defense is looking really, really good in the biggest spot when they absolutely needed it. They come up with a huge stop.
Yeah, after Missouri scored that touchdown to start the game, when right downfield go up 7-0, then it kind of felt like Bama settled in, kind of took control of the game
Yeah.
for the most part. But Missouri, like I said, just kept on hanging around, had a chance late. And like I talk about, Bo Prabula played solid for the most part. Made that one mistake on that pass late down the field with that interception. And I mean, we've all seen the clip of the Missouri receiver jumping up and down in frustration on that final play. So, you know, it was brutal for Missouri, but Missouri, it's about to get even more brutal. Austin, I just want you to picture this. This weekend, October 18th, is Missouri's first road game of the season. Yeah, they have yet to
So
play
it's
a
like,
game away from home until this weekend against Auburn.
so are they
So,
playing 6 straight road games?
well, actually, it looks like they still have two more home games. They only have four road games this year. They're at Auburn this weekend. Then they're at Vanderbilt after that. Then they host A&M, host Mississippi State, and then they're at Oklahoma and at Arkansas to end the year. It's a very odd schedule. It's a very odd schedule for Missouri. Not going to lie, if I had done my research on Missouri in the preseason, I would have bet high on them to be super successful at start of the year, if I'm being honest. But yeah, it's a
Yeah,
weird schedule for them. So we'll see what that does for Missouri with this kind of loss. But for Bama, like you said, it feels like in this SEC that's chaotic as all get out. Um, Feels like we're kind of seeing a team start to kind of maybe emerge to the top there, especially if they keep on winning. But Kalen DeBoer has got to keep on wearing the black hoodies for the magic to continue, is what's got to happen.
Yeah, I agree. And people kind of jumped on the gun at the beginning of the season. I'll say even me and you, we kind of talked about it a little bit too early about what
Yeah.
might happen to Kalen DeBoer if the, success didn't continue to come, if this team continued to lose these games that they didn't lose with Saban, especially, after the season they had last year. And Kalen DeBoer said, "Hey, I'm not done. I'm not a bad coach. We're not a bad team. We've come out here and they really proved themselves, moving up to 5-1, especially after the way that Florida State game looked. Um, we thought maybe we could see a rough
Yeah.
season for Alabama, but so far they've had plenty of excuses, plenty of reasons to not show up and get big wins. You think about the ranked game this week. Think about the game against Georgia earlier this season. You think about the game against Vandy. All games against ranked SEC opponents where they could have just not shown up and they could have said, "Oh, it's just this tough SEC schedule. Still trying to get to know everybody. Still trying to change, kind of, establish my own culture as a head coach." No, they've come out. They're 5-1 now, 5 in a row. And like you said, they look like they're rising back to the top of the SEC where they were when Saban was there.
Yeah. And my only worry still with them is you remember from last year, Austin, the big games really were not an issue last year. It wasn't the big games for them.
That's
It
true.
was the games against the teams that they should have handled business like we thought they would against Florida State, and that didn't happen. So the good news for them is there is only two games left on the schedule that really stick out as that as of this moment, which is after this Tennessee game, they're at South Carolina. The good news for them is it's not a night kick at South Carolina. It's an afternoon kick. If it was a prime time spot, then this would be a different story we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And then you're at Auburn to end the year. It's at Jordan Hare. Austin, we have seen our fair share of Iron Bowls, and we know good and dang well when that game's played at Jordan Hare, some weird stuff happens. So I'm not saying they're out of it
Yeah.
yet, but they really don't have a lot of those, okay, we got to get up to play them because the rest of their schedule besides that is tough opponents.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. And like you said, there's kind of something going on in the air out at Jordan Hare. Leads to a funny football game every time. Um, Definitely a good watch. Texas taking the Red River Crown 23-6 in this one. And look, let's be honest, John Mateer, happy to see him back. College football missed you, but
Yeah.
he looked rusty in this game.
Mm,
3 interceptions, no touchdowns. 20 completions to 18 incompletions. Not the prettiest performance. But really on the Texas side of the ball, offensively, the numbers don't jump out and say, oh, this is a
right.
dominant Texas win. They just did what they needed to do to get the job done. And that's just plain and simple. But again, with the amount of turnovers, you don't really have to do a lot of work when the field gets cut down that many times.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much the storyline of this game was Texas offense didn't do anything great, but guess what? They didn't turn the ball over. They didn't screw up. Oklahoma and John Mateer screwed up. And it goes back to my point with Oklahoma. John Mateer, number one, I was happy to see him back. But I mean, you watched the game. I mean, he really should not
Yeah,
have played this week if we're being honest. But
agreed.
my other issue, I talked about it weeks ago, and I had Oklahoma people in the comments saying on TikTok, what are you talking about with it's just John Mateer carrying this offense? This is my proving point.
Yeah.
48 total yards rushing in this game. John Mateer, they didn't have a choice but for John Mateer to throw the football in this game. And what that resulted in with him not being 100% and forced to throw it a lot? Turnovers. That's exactly what happened there. So, like I said, this Oklahoma offense is all John Mateer. The good news for them is it's just one loss. The bad news, though, is they literally have a non ranked game at South Carolina this weekend, and then it's all ranked matchups the rest of the year. So,
Yeah.
they got to get him 100% and quick. Otherwise, things are going to fall off. And then for Texas, like I said, was Arch amazing? No. But 21 to 27, touchdowns, 0 picks, didn't turn it over at all. Pure and simple. They didn't screw up. That's what led to it. This Texas defense is good, and the offense is playing complementary football, which, if Texas does that the rest of the year, then maybe we can look at Texas getting back into the SEC conversation. Because let's remember, they only got one conference loss. So they could get back in the conversation, but their offense has to play complementary football to their defense.
Yeah, and you talk about their non-conference loss. Look, kind of sucks to have that Florida Ross on your resume, especially after what happened this past weekend. But your other loss is to the right now number one team and number one defense in the country. I mean,
Could be
there's
worse.
a
You could have a
little bit
much worse second loss.
agreed. There's at least a little bit of leeway right now. I'm not saying this team will make a college football playoff. I definitely think you're going to have to at least make the SEC championship, kind of with
Yeah.
the way their season's gone. But I'm just saying that, again, a loss to the number one team in the nation, the best defense in the nation, you can be a little bit more forget if this team comes out and play the way they played here this past weekend, the rest of the season, then you could maybe be excused for losing one in the swamp to Florida. Um, but then into another game where, look, we'll talk about this conference and what's going on there, kind of the opposite of what's happening in the SEC in the Big 12. Um, Iowa State loses its second in a row, going down 24-17 against Coach Prime and the Buffs. With Iowa State in this whole Big 12, it's just like, oh, you were at the bottom. Now you're coming up to the top. Oh, you're at the top. You're coming to the middle. Oh, you're Kansas State. You're still somewhere down here at the bottom because you played
Yeah.
at Ireland and lost. Um,
It feels like
it,
you just open a door wide open. It feels like this, Austin, where you're just like, okay, who wants first place? Anybody?
yeah,
Anybody at
and
all?
and
Anybody want it?
the crazy thing is, look, we'll talk about it a little bit more. I'll bring up the standings and we'll talk about it a little bit more. Um, Here in a minute. Once we finish talking about all these games. But I feel like we're setting up for the fourth year in a row where we're going to have 7 teams eligible to make the conference championship. And it all just depends on who beats who and who doesn't lose to who. And even the game where we're going to see Colorado, who's not going to be in the conversation, and I don't know, Kansas, who's probably not really going to be in the conversation. Whoever wins that game is going to affect a tiebreaker for
Yeah.
somebody up at the top. And so even if you win, if Kansas loses, because you lost to Kansas or because you only beat Kansas by 3 points or whatever, you're gonna now be out of the conference championship. All that crazy, wacky stuff feels like it's setting up here again in the Big 12.
What wasn't it last year that it came down to BYU and Houston when it was neither team could make it, right? Neither team could
Yeah,
make it, but it
yeah,
was
I
like a
think
late night game on that Saturday night.
yeah, it was. I think if BYU, who I believe ended up winning, if they
Yeah.
won, Colorado would be out because they
Yeah.
lost the game to BYU. But if Houston won, Colorado would be in because then
Yes.
loss
That's what
wouldn't
it
have
was.
mattered.
Yeah.
Um,
My gosh. Yeah. What a
Something in that
conference.
vein. So I just know, and what really it I hope if anything they just keep adding more teams, but because they've added so many teams with this conference realignment,
Right.
they have so many teams in the conference that so many teams are going to finish with 0 losses and 1 loss and 2 losses in conference. Well, really, it's usually 1 loss and two. You have a bunch of teams with 1 loss and a bunch of teams with 2 losses, and then how all these teams decide to finish the season decides who can go. And there's just so many teams that they can't all play each other in the regular season. So then you have to. So many teams are going to finish with similar conference records.
Yeah.
It's wacky. But Iowa State, it felt like, hey, they have firm control. They started out the season with that Big 12 win in Ireland, and now losing to Cincinnati, which was kind of a not necessarily a trap game because I kind of thought Cincinnati was a good team
Yeah.
and would challenge them. But to lose that game and then to lose a real trap game here against Colorado, a team that has been so this season, been turnover crazy
Yeah.
on the offensive end of the football, and now to come in and lose 2 straight, it feels like that grip that you had on first place is slowly slipping as we
Yeah.
see some of these teams start to rise to the top. Again, we'll talk about that more in a little
Yeah.
bit. But your thoughts
But
on this game?
well, and like we'll get to in a little bit. Yeah, Iowa State's now 2-2 in conference play. They're out, right? Like it's like the Dark Knight where it's like he's out, right?
Yeah.
Nope, he ain't out. He ain't out yet. I'm not gonna rule him out yet. But for Colorado, it's good for Dion and them. Caden Salter played the best game of the season so far for him, and their defense played really good for Colorado. So good for them. And it's like I was talking about this on the another show I do. We're like, this just feels like a game where knowing the Big 12 Colorado is going to win, right? We're like, yeah, exactly. And then that's exactly what happened in this game.
Agreed. Look, you can Google it. Signetti wins again, another big game in Eugene, 30-20. And look, we talked about it last year, and it was the big talk of the town when Indiana made the playoff. They played one good team and they lost. And then they lost to Notre Dame in the first round. Why were they in? That's what they said. This year, Signetti gets a top 10 matchup against Illinois. They win. They get a top 10 matchup in Eugene against Oregon. They win. Signetti has not only made this team the contender they were last year, this team is maybe head and shoulders better than last year. They might blow out last year's team if they played in a scrimmage.
Yeah, oh, they would absolutely blow out last year's team in scrimmage, especially on the defensive end. That's my big takeaway in this game. You look at it. There's two things. Number one, the pick six for Oregon that happened, and then one play where it was busted coverage by Indiana, and that led to an Oregon touchdown. Besides those two plays, Austin, 6 points allowed by this Indiana defense. Sacking Dante Moore 6 times, holding Oregon to only 81 yards rushing. I know we talk about Mendoza and them and how great they've been. This defense is so much better than what it was a year ago. And for them, I mean, me and you both said when picking the game, we're like, listen, if this is in Indiana, it'd be different. But I doubt them going into Autzen Stadium and winning there because nobody's really been able to do it. Well,
Yeah.
Kurt Signetti's done it. Can I just say, too, Kurt Signetti makes every single coach in college football look bad because you hear all the
Agreed.
coaches in athletic directors be like, be patient. We're going to build something. We're like, Kurt Signetti's got Indiana number 3 in the country in year number 2 from a team that the year before he got there won, what, 2? 3 games. So no,
Sounds
don't
about right.
tell me to be patient with what they're doing quickly. I tell you what, every other coach in America I think hates Kurt Signetti because of that. But it's an awesome win. Oregon, I mean, I'll just be honest with you, you got outclassed in this game. It wasn't really even that close. The final score is honestly a little bit nicer, honestly, than you think if it was. Oregon still got a chance, but Indiana, man, oh man, what? Wow! Like you said, they would probably blow out the team, the last year's team. It wouldn't even be close. And guess what, all you people, y'all want to discredit this win like you discredited Illinois? You really want to do that for Indiana? Go right ahead. Go right ahead. Because guess what? It's not going to matter, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be a team in the playoff. And like we said after the Illinois game, this is a team that will be in the playoff and will win a game in the playoff this time, most likely. Obviously, depending on matchups. But an awesome win for Signetti.
Yeah, this was a great game. Wonderful performance. And look, this was kind of the issue that Dan Lanning kind of hinted at the beginning of the season
Yeah.
when he was kind of talking about this team. Really excited about these guys, but for the first time in a couple of years, it's not a veteran group. This is a group that's very young, still learning. And look, we saw that Dante Moore 2 interceptions in this game. The defense made some mistakes, like we said. So look, they did enough to keep it close. They made some plays when they needed to make some plays, took advantage of opportunities, but still a young team. And obviously, with the way Indiana's rolling, your first loss in conference, hey, no sweat. You lose a tough game to a team that's a little bit more experienced and outplayed you. Hey, it's not the end of the world. This is still a good Oregon team who can
Mm-hmm.
definitely bounce back. You can't let this be the thing that sends you into a spiral. Another huge upset in the Big Ten. USC takes down number 15 Michigan 31-13. And look, this USC offense, I really think has looked the best it has in Lincoln Riley's whole tenure there. I
Yeah.
think Caleb Williams himself looked great at USC, but I think as a whole, this offensive unit looks its best right now at USC than it has in Lincoln Riley's whole tenure. I think they're getting the job done. And convenient timing for me and for Notre Dame. USC gets back in the rankings this week with this win over Michigan. Maybe to help pad the schedule. Obviously, hoping Notre Dame gets a win this coming
Yeah.
weekend. But this was just kind of another issue, kind of like I just talked about with Oregon. Michigan's a good team, but they're a young team, and they've still got a lot of
Mm-hmm.
learning to do. And this more veteran USC team really came out and took advantage, especially being able to host Michigan in this one.
Yeah, I just want you to picture this, Austin. Imagine just thinking about it. Going into this game, I'd say, hey, the winning team's going to rush for 224 yards. Who would you have thought that was going into the game?
Definitely Michigan.
Yeah, definitely. You would think so. Not the story here. USC, 224 yards on the ground. King Miller, fun fact for you, King Miller, a walk-on freshman at USC. Came in, rushed for 158 yards in this game against a very good Michigan defense. And so credit to them. USC offense picking up, but the defense, again, has been the thing over the last couple of years under Danton Lynn, who's gotten better and better at USC. And yeah, like you talked about, perfect timing. I heard some people saying this is a statement win by USC in this game against Michigan. I'm like, no, no, no. A statement win would be going into South Bend on Saturday night and taking down Notre Dame. That's making a statement right there. So that's going to be a fun game I look forward to. Big win for USC. Like I said with Michigan kind of at the start of the season, this is a team that just screamed 9-3 season to me and a top 10 ranking next year. And you saw it. They still have some growing pains to get through.
Absolutely. And the final game we're going to talk about from last week, Utah taking down number 21 Arizona State 42-10. And it feels like there's a bug spreading here in the Big 12.
Yeah.
You get this team just gets back into the rankings or just gets into the rankings, and then they play an unranked Big 12 opponent that's lingering on the rankings, and they beat you and they take your spot in the rankings. And this is what we saw again in this game. Look, Arizona State, TCU played. Arizona State takes their spot. Now Utah doing the same thing to Arizona State with a big win here. Again, thoughts on this game, and then we're going to get into talking about this Big 12 conference and how wild and crazy it's been.
Well, I think we saw the big thing. Honestly, for those of you who remember, didn't know, Sam Levitt was out for this game. Sam Levitt didn't play. So it led to Jeff Sims. Yes, Jeff Sims is still in college football, ladies and
Still
gentlemen.
in college.
I have no idea how he has any eligibility left. But nonetheless, I think we saw how important Sam Levitt was to Arizona State in this game because, my gosh, Utah just throttled them. Utah throttled them, and Devon Dampier only threw for 104 yards. They just dominated on the ground and got turnovers whenever they needed to and just blew them out. So credit to Utah. Arizona State, like I said, if you get Sam Levitt back, you got a chance in every single game the rest of the year. But you got to get him back, especially with who Arizona State's playing this weekend. You got to get him back to have a chance. But a big win for Utah in dominating fashion.
Agreed. Look, this conference right now sitting at the top, tied for first place. You've got BYU, Texas Tech, and Cincinnati are all 3-0.
Why not?
Then right behind them, Houston, Utah, Arizona State, and Baylor all sit at 2-1. Iowa State, Kansas State 2-2, Arizona, TCU 1-2, Colorado 1-3, and UCF, West Virginia, and Oklahoma State all sit at 0-3. Here's the crazy thing. With only 3 teams sitting at 3-0, if you're at 0-3 right now, these bottom 3 teams, or even 1-2 and 1-3, what are you sweating right now? Chances are, with the way the Big 12 goes, each of these teams loses at least one game that's sitting at the top right now.
Yep.
3 losses if you don't lose another conference game. If you don't lose another conference games, a lot easier said than done. You could still be in an argument for these crazy tiebreakers and everything else that happens. But, I mean, this many teams right now, we've got 7 teams that have lost 1 or less game in conference play right now. It's going to be just absolutely wild. I already know it is. But the way these teams are stacked together right now, some crazy teams sitting at the top. Imagine Cincinnati goes to the conference championship. They already beat Iowa State, so they're definitely a team to look at.
Again, and can I just say this is a blessing again, along with the college football playoff going to 12 teams. This is a blessing because in past years when it was just 4 teams, we'd be like, yeah, this is fun just to win conference. Now for this, you win the conference, you're making the playoff. You win the conference, you're going to play with the best of the best. And honestly, BYU is a massive test this weekend, the Holy War. Texas Tech, I will say this, if there was someone I look at as probably a clear front runner, it'd probably be Texas Tech. They have yet to win a game by less than 24 points this year. They've won every game by 24 or more points. So the question is, will that happen when they play at Arizona State? If Sam Levitt's not playing, maybe. If he is, I mean, I highly doubt it. So, like I said, even these teams that are at the bottom, they're like 2-2, 1-2. You're like, yeah, what do we got to lose? I mean, right now. So what? These teams will take care of themselves. BYU and Utah play. Like I said, Utah could fall to 2-2 in the blink of an eye, or BYU falls to 3-1, and we're having multiple teams at 3-1. This conference, man, oh man, I can't wait to see how it unfolds because, like you said, even if we are excited to see it, we have no idea what's going to happen. And it might come down to a late night game, end of the season between, like I said, Kansas and maybe like Arizona or something, like to end the year. It's like, okay, if they win, then this team goes. They win, then this team goes. But if the other team wins this, then this happens. And it's, I can't wait for it. But BYU, Texas Tech, Cincinnati are at the top. I really don't know. It's kind of, to me, it's Texas Tech and then who's going to play them, at least as of right now. But things will change.
Yeah, things will certainly change. And just you saying that might lead to a Texas Tech loss this weekend because the Big 12 hates to have a favorite.
They're like, what? Who said Texas Tech was a favorite? How dare they? Just disrespectful.
It's not going to happen. They're not going to win it. But look, obviously, big news breaks this weekend. Penn State loses its 3rd straight game to Northwestern. Drew Aller out for the season. And James Franklin fired after this 3rd straight loss, their 2nd straight loss as a 20-plus point favorite. Look, I think it's tough. We both come on here. We like James Franklin. We picked Penn State to win the national championship this year. It's a tough situation. But look, as much as I like the guy, as much as I think he's a good fit at Penn State, and he's been overall good for them. This was a really tough string of games to have happen. Again, I'll defend this Oregon loss tooth and nail. It was a great game. Somebody had to lose. Um, that's just how I look at it. It's tough. You were the ones to lose, but you lost on an interception in overtime. Like it was a great game. It was as close as it could be. Um, but to follow it up with two absolutely just really stinker performances, that's the best way to describe it. And again, I understand Drew Lock gets hurt in this game early and doesn't play. But did you see how he played last week? Have you seen really how he's played all season? Um, this has just been a bad situation for Penn State. And, to keep your job, you can't play like this.
I will say this before I dive into. I want to give him his flowers because I got his stats pulled up here. Again, he became head coach in 2014 at Penn State. His accomplishments: a 104-45 record, 5 AP top 10 finishes, 7 AP top 20 finishes, 6 10-win seasons, won the Big Ten in 2016, made the semifinals of the college football playoff last year, 2017 Fiesta Bowl, 2019 Cotton Bowl, 2022 Rose Bowl, and then obviously Fiesta Bowl last year. And then he had Penn State ranked in the AP top 10 at some point in 10 consecutive seasons dating back to 2016. So I'll give the guys flowers there. And this is such a conflicting thing for me because, like you said, the thing that's kept him there at Penn State as long as he's been is, does he lose the big games? Yes. But does he win the games against teams he's supposed to beat? Absolutely. That's what's helped him be able to get those 10-2 make the playoff. Now you lose 2 in a row as 20-plus point favorites. And so I'm like, okay, well, if he's not even doing that, then there's really no defending him there. And again, it's not like it was just, like average team. No, this was Northwestern, a team that their best seasons are usually 6-win seasons, 6 or 7-win seasons. And then UCLA, I don't want to go into detail about it, but I mean, we know the story. Coach, interim coach, everything's falling to crap at UCLA, and yet they go out and beat them. But talking about it here for both, let me say for both sides. Number one, I get why they fired James Franklin because of those losses and everything. I get it. At the same time, though, what exactly do they think they can go out and get that's much better than James Franklin? That's my only hesitancy with this is, yes, did he deserve to get fired for those few losses, and was that part of it? Absolutely. And I get why Penn State fans are happy he's fired. I get it. But when you look at it, like I just said, all those accolades he's done, is there really anyone you could get that's better? And I know people want to be like, well, they could go get Curt Cignetti. If this was 10 years ago and he was in Indiana, yes. But in this NIL era, Indiana's gave him a lot of resources. He's a lot better situation football-wise for Indiana. Why would he leave that for an uncertain situation at Penn State? I mean, that's an honest thing there. But that's just my thoughts on it. I get it for both sides. I get an argument for both sides. Here's my question, though, Austin. Who do you think they should go after for this next Penn State coach?
I think you've got to make it a big name. I think you have to throw out some big offers. You have to try and sway somebody. With all the offensive woes they've had as of late, maybe a guy like Kenny Dillingham, who's at Arizona State. My big thing is, look, you talk about Curt Cignetti. Why would Curt Cignetti leave Indiana at all right now? Not just to mention what he's getting NIL-wise, but he took him to the college football playoff last year, and he's on the cusp of doing it again this year. What more can he hope to achieve? Clearly he's gotten the attention of the national media because he's got him at number 3 in the nation right now. I just think it's kind of laughable. Sure, maybe they're a more prestigious program, but who cares when you're winning right now?
Exactly.
He left James Madison because he couldn't get to where he knew he could get as a coach and as a team at James Madison. He's getting that now. If you're playing for national championships in the Big Ten at Indiana, does it matter what color your jersey is?
No, does not. It matters what players you got, and they've got the players.
And then again, look, I'm with you. I get the firing, and I think at the end of the day, you're not wrong for the decision that they made. But you want to talk about spending money on the football program. They're going to eat $49 million so that James
Hmm.
Franklin won't coach him anymore. Where's that for? I mean, players, alumni are coming out and saying we can muster up $49 million to get James Franklin out of here, but we can't put $49 million into the football team while he's here on the cusp of a national championship last year. Uh, like you said, the NIL opportunities a lot better at Indiana than they are at Penn State. They're a lot better in a lot of places than they are at Penn State.
Hmm.
I'm not here to
Yeah.
diss Penn State, but look, this
Yeah.
isn't the wrong decision, but it doesn't sit right. Everything that's gone on,
Right.
he made some mistakes, and like you said, he lost the games he's supposed to win. That's been the big thing for him. I get the decision at the end of the day, but it to me, it's about Penn State still has to step up. The
Yeah.
responsibility and the for the losses here cannot just fall on James Franklin.
I wanna throw one name at you and then we can move on. I want to throw one name at you to keep an eye on. What about Matt Campbell at Iowa State? You think
Yep.
about what he's been able to do with the small amount of resources at Iowa State. Imagine at least somewhat of an upgrade to Penn State, at least in sources and upgrades. Because let's face it, like it is. I mean, what he's done there is remarkable at Iowa State. I mean, it's been incredible. That to me, if I'm Penn State, I'm going after him. That's just my opinion, though.
I'll say this. Look, if you coach in the Big Ten or the SEC, why? Why take this job? If you coach in the
Mhm.
Big Ten, you're already coaching in the Big Ten. If you coach in the
Yeah.
SEC, you're coaching in the better Big Ten. Um, so you're not getting any more like national notoriety. Maybe a little bit better in NIL if you're at one of the smaller programs in either of those. But I mean, if you're looking at somebody in the Big Ten and the SEC, you're not looking at whoever Northwestern's coach is. Uh, you're not looking at, I mean, even, Clark Lee, who I think is a great coach. I don't know if your eyes necessarily on him at Vandy. And I don't know if he'd leave. I don't know why you'd leave there either. Again, I don't know why you'd leave your SEC or Big Ten job to take Penn State right now without certain guarantees. Um, I feel the same way about the University of Arkansas. Without guarantees, why would you leave an SEC job or a Big Ten job to come to the University of
Exactly.
Arkansas
Exactly.
without those kind of financial guarantees? But yeah, we talk about some of these Big 12 teams. This is definitely a step up. Maybe financially. Obviously, if you're at Texas Tech, this is not a step up
No.
financially.
No.
But for some of these teams, like you said, Iowa State, Arizona State, like I mentioned with Kenny Dillingham, could definitely be an upgrade kind of in the NIL market. You think about how many guys they had poached after last year because of the NIL market.
Mhm.
Um, so it could definitely be an upgrade there. And then national notoriety, a lot more respect in the Big Ten or the SEC than there are in the Big 12. So yeah, I could see this being a more appealing job, but I think you've got to go out and get like a decently sized name. I don't think this is the time to be taking
Like
uh
a risky decision. Like this has got to be someone who
yeah,
are like, okay, that makes sense to go after them.
like no offense to Oregon because I think they've got a great program and they've got a great staff, but even with a program as good as Oregon, I don't think this is the time to go out and grab Oregon's OC or Oregon's DC
Hmm.
and be like, I think this is the time you go out and get a big name guy. And if you're going to get a coordinator, somebody with a huge name attached to it.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think that while it's definitely an issue we've seen with James Franklin over the last few years, the university has to step up and take some of the blame or step up and help this team grow.
Hmm.
Um, because if you're going to fork over $49 million for James Franklin and not coach there anymore, then you need to be forking up at least half that money to help build this program and make it a little bit better. Again, we'll probably talk about it for the next century with NIL. What Texas Tech's doing right now is working, and that's the future of college football. I know they're not the only program with this awesome like NIL collective, but you talk about turning the university around in a short amount of time with this
Yeah.
NIL opportunity. That's the future. If you want to win college
I'm
football, that's how to do it.
I mean, and to summarize, I said this on another show I was doing. I said, imagine 5 years ago, Austin, before we knew what NIL could be. If I would have told you between Arkansas, Indiana, and Texas Tech in football, which of those teams would you thought be left behind by NIL? You would have thought Indiana in football or
Yeah.
something. Nope, it's Arkansas because Texas Tech and Indiana committed to it. If you commit to it and get the right guys in there, you can win. But you got to get the right guys in there and get everyone to buy into it.
But let's get into our team and player of the weeks here. Kick us off with your top 5 teams of the week here. And let's get our minds off this awful, awful situation we got.
Yeah, so number 5 for me, I got Pittsburgh. Just an impressive win going to Tallahassee and get the win over Florida State there. Give them credit. Number 4, UCLA. Austin, UCLA might be a juggernaut now. Ever since they made those changes, they might be a juggernaut. Dominated Michigan State on the road. Number 3 is South Florida. Look, this was the game to watch in the group of 5, and they dominated in that third quarter to get the win. Number 2, Northwestern. Look, going into Happy Valley and winning against Penn State is tough for anyone to do. And for them to go on the road and do it is very impressive for them. So I had to put them at number 2. But number 1, I mean, come on. It's Indiana easily. It's like, Gus Johnson said, Indiana, they got a football team now. And we said that last year. I'll add to it. They got an elite football team now.
Yeah, I'm with you. They've got an elite football team. I don't know if you noticed in my notes. I just caught it right now as I did it and I edited it. My number 5 team, I put Michigan and I meant to put USC. I know that didn't matter for our polls and anything, but that was a Michigan USC game. I was like, Michigan? What? I meant USC. So at number 5, USC, the Trojans at home, a top 15 game here against Michigan, and you go out and you get the win. You put yourself back in the rankings with only 1 loss to Illinois, and you give yourself an opportunity now, like you said, to go into South Bend and get a statement win and put yourself in the Big Ten title picture and that national championship picture. This is a big opportunity for them. At number 4, I went with Pitt. Look, I like this Pitt team. I like the team they've gotten. Look, they've had to make a change at quarterback, but they looked really, really good in this game. They look like back on their feet, and they look like they could be a challenge in this ACC if they keep this momentum. Big win in Tallahassee over number 25. At number 3, I've got Ohio State. Look, it was maybe an expected win, but this was definitely an opportunity to come out, play flat on the road in Champaign against a solid defense. And even though they were tested early, look, I like the adjustments. I hate to give Ryan Day this much credit. I love the adjustments in this game because they won last week, but on that first drive of the game, 2 weeks ago, I should say, they had it in the red zone, chance to kick a field goal and just get some points on the board after the first drive. They go for it on 4th down, and they don't get it, and it nearly costs them. Obviously, the game ended up not being that close, but it set a bad tone to start this game. In this one, you're coming out against a tough team in Illinois and a tough defense, and they stop you in the red zone. And instead of being that risky go get it, we learn our lesson. We say, hey, we're going to kick the field goal here. We're going to take our points. And they had to do that a couple times in this game. But because their defense has played so well, this complimentary football they're playing right now, they look like such a tough team to beat. If they can, if the offense can just do enough, or just even get field goals on the board, that really seems to be all that matters because this defense is stopping everybody right now. At number 2, I went with the Alabama Crimson Tide, going on the road, playing in Columbia, getting the big win over Missouri. Huge. They do a great job of getting the victory. And like I said, this team looks primed for the college football playoff. They're all snapping together and rising to the top of this SEC. But yeah, the obvious clear-cut number 1, it's really not a question. Indiana goes out in a big prove-it game, the games they didn't really have on the schedule and the wins they didn't have on the schedule last year. They shut up the haters. They get the job done. Indiana wins it. And I won't leave you in suspense. Indiana dominates our polls on social media. They're our overall Bull Tech Podcast Team of the Week.
I mean, we've already said a lot about them, so I guess I'll say again, they got an elite football team now, ladies and gentlemen. And guess what? This might become an irregular thing. Get used to it with Indiana being a good football team. Get used to it.
Agreed. I don't know why anybody coaching, playing in the AD's office, why you'd want to leave what you've got right now. You're in the Big Ten, one of the top two conferences in football,
Hmm.
and you're winning football games. This is the spot to
Yeah.
be right now. But let's spin it over to your top five players of the week. What you got going there?
So I'm very interested to see how this works out. Number 5 is a guy who, on the defense side of the ball, who will probably be a contender for my defensive player of the year when we get to the end of the year. David Bailey, linebacker from Texas Tech, 3 sacks against Kansas and a forced fumble. Had a field day against Kansas in that game. Had to put him in at number 5. Number 4, I got DJ Epps, wide receiver from Troy. This is a game I actually got to watch. Troy had an unbelievable comeback against Texas State to get the win over them. And DJF's part of it. 10 catches, 148 yards, 2 touchdowns. Wanted to show him some love for it. Number 3, I went Desmond Reed from Pittsburgh with this one. You look at the rushing stats, you're like, man, only like 45 yards rushing? What is Austin doing here? Then you look at the receiving stats 8 catches, 155 yards, 2 touchdowns. Pretty good day to go on the road and beat Florida State in that game. Number 2, you mentioned him earlier, Byron Brown, just dominant on the ground and through the air in this performance for South Florida whenever they went to North Texas and dominated them. But number 1 is a guy who I didn't even know what to expect. Texas Tech running back, sophomore from Austin, Texas. Yeah,
Wow.
Longhorns could have had him. Cameron Dickey, their star running back, 21 carries, 263 yards, 2 touchdowns, averaged 12 and a half yards a carry, Austin. He literally averaged a first down per carry. So, dominant performance by him. Had to put him at number 1 on my player of the weeks with that dominant performance.
Yeah. And I was glad to see a couple of your guys like Byron Brown and Desmond Reed make your list because they were guys that were definitely in consideration for me. And I just kind of went in a different direction. But at number 5, I went with Jace Balaw, DB from Colorado State, 2 interceptions, a ton of interception return yards, and a close nail-biting victory over Fresno State. Obviously, those turnovers make all the difference in the world in those one-possession games. Um, and number 4, I went with Elijah Surratt, wide receiver from Indiana. Look, this was a great performance all around by IU, but Elijah Surratt's had a couple really good games this season, added another over 100 receiving yard game and a touchdown. Had to get him on the list, had to show somebody some love here. At number 3, this was close to being my number 1, but some bigger statistics drew my eye. But Blake Horvath at Navy, my goodness, a season he's having to really capitalize on the success this team had last year. But look, he's running, he's throwing, he's doing everything. And when this team needs him to, at the end of the game, breakaway touchdown, and then the crazy throw and
Yeah,
catch on the 2-point conversion to ice this game. Had to show some love to one of my favorite players in college football right now. At number 2, I went with Demond Williams or Damon
yeah.
Williams. I'm not exactly sure how to say it. At Washington, this guy was phenomenal. You look at the passing stats alone, and you think, what are you talking about? Just over 100, or just over 150 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, nothing really going there. How about over 100 yards rushing and 3 rushing touchdowns to go along with
Not
it?
bad. Not bad.
Did it all. Was a phenomenal performance. A guy I know we've talked about a couple times on here, but just great to see him go out and have a big game like that and a great performance. Really one of those guys that we'll be looking out for here in the next year or two as a potential Heisman candidate with the way he's been playing. But at number 1, I went with running back Cam Cook out of Jacksonville State. This guy, 31 carries for 218 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a narrow 29-27 victory over Sam Houston. Look, there hasn't been a lot great going on for Jacksonville State right now at 3-3, but Cam Cook has been a consistent force for this team.
Absolutely.
But when we take it over to Instagram here, we had Cameron Dickey and Elijah Surratt winning their polls. On Twitter, we had a much different story. We had 4 guys taking home some points for him. Cameron Dickey. We had Reed taking home, Desmond Reed taking home some points. Blake Horvath, Damon Williams, just points all around, points galore. Made it a close finish, but look, being number one and winning polls, that's going to put you at the number one player of the week every single time. So our number one overall, Ashton Jeanty, player of the week. Cameron Dickey out of
Yeah.
Texas Tech.
Wow. I would love if I don't know how we do. We need to find like a way to get live odds for like the player of the year, like odds, because it would just be like this the whole time. It'd be everyone moving up and down, up and down. Honestly, Blake Horvath is kind of maybe moving up with that third place fish for you, but congrats to Dickey. I mean, he was dominant on the ground against Kansas. Definitely deserved the opportunity to be our player of the week. Who knows? We'll see what Texas Tech can do the rest of the year. They might not be done in this category.
Agreed. I mean, you talked about it with David Bailey. I think that's the third or fourth time he's been on your list. Um, so yeah, obviously we've got some Texas Tech players making some rises on this player of the week uh list right now. But let's take it into the rankings and start with the top 10. We had a lot of change up in the top 25 and also in the top 10 here. Starting at number one, Ohio State stays firm as well as Miami at number two. But Indiana moving up four to number three. Texas A&M up 1-4. Ole Miss down 1-5. Alabama up 2-6. Texas Tech up 2-7. Oregon down 5-8. Georgia up 1-9. And LSU up 1-10. Thoughts on this top 10 so far?
Really no issues. This is the first time I feel like I've said this in a hot minute. Really no issues with me. I liked Indiana moving up, but not ahead of Miami and them. I liked Ole Miss getting drawback because they were 100% looking ahead to their matchup this weekend with the way they played against Washington State. Liked Oregon getting moved down, but not too much. The only thing I will say is I kind of wish Georgia Tech was number 10 instead of LSU. That's probably my only critique, I'd say. But besides that, yeah, really no issues with this top 10 whatsoever.
How is Georgia Tech not ahead of LSU and Tennessee right now?
Yeah. Because they play because their logo on their jersey say ACC. That's the reason.
Yeah, but I agree with you there. That's definitely a huge factor in it. Like you said, otherwise, I do like this top 10. Obviously, just with the way the season shakes out, some of those top teams start playing against each other. We start to kind of see teams settle out. And then you think about a team like Florida State, who was in the top 10 just a few weeks ago, and now have completely skidded out of the top 25. You see some of those. I hesitate to call Florida State a pretender because they have had really narrow losses in all of
Right.
these games. And all the teams they've lost to are ranked in the top 25. So I don't want to call them pretenders per se, but just some of these teams that maybe didn't belong in their spots are starting to kind of level out. And we're finding the teams kind of fitting where they belong. Our next
Absolutely.
five, 11, Tennessee moving up one spot. 12, Georgia Tech moving up one spot. 13, Notre Dame moves up three. At 14, we've got Oklahoma, who fell down 8 spots. And at 15, we've got BYU up three. I'll say this much before I let you go. Oklahoma falling down 8 spots. I'll be honest. I don't think it's just. I think this is a game. I know Mateer wasn't 100%. I think this is a game that they should have gotten a little bit more punishment for losing to Texas. And I know we're not there yet, but putting Texas back in the rankings for this win is also
Mm.
diabolical.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, my only issue there again for all the people who keep on saying like, why is Notre Dame so high? Again, like we said, that happened weeks ago. That's really nothing to do with the eight people. They made that mistake weeks ago, and that's only led to people having the issue with Notre Dame
Yeah.
going up there. No real issue, I would say. My only thinking, I did like them not dropping Missouri too much because it was a very competitive game against Bama. I kind of agree. I
Agreed.
thought Oklahoma maybe dropped to like 11 or 12 range, maybe is kind of what I would think, but they decided to be a little bit more rude. But this shows Oklahoma now they got to be a lot more aggressive and get those wins going for them.
Absolutely, I agree. I just think they were bailed out a little too much. I think if John Mateer doesn't play in this game and you lose, you can have some grace. But I think to play John Mateer in this game and kind
Right,
of take that
right.
risk, I think you need to be punished a little bit more. Um, but our next five, 16, we've got Missouri, who dropped down just the 2 spots. 17, we've got Vandy up 3. 18, we've got Virginia up 1. USF up 5 to 19. And USC back in the rankings at number 20. Man, just something so sweet about seeing Virginia, South Florida, Vandy, Virginia, South Florida, that run of teams right there. I know I kind of commented on it last week, seeing that run, but just seeing these teams just right there together.
I mean, it just puts a smile on your face. It's got to put a smile on your face seeing those teams there. Again, no real issues here. Really tracks out for me as far as these teams go. Again, we'll see what some of them can do with some of the opportunities they're going to have this week. But yeah, no issues to me whatsoever there.
Then at 21, we got Texas, 22 Memphis, 23 Utah, 24 Cincinnati, and 25 Nebraska, which I was pleasantly surprised to see.
Yeah.
5-1, off to a good start. I like this. I like starting to get some recognition for these teams. Memphis also creeping their way up and up and up is fun. Utah back in, Cincinnati in for the first time, Nebraska in for the first time. Again, why on earth is Texas back in the top 25? One win over Oklahoma, who may be the number 6 team in the nation, shouldn't be the end-all, be-all to your problems. Especially, again, the offense did its job and it didn't make mistakes, but this wasn't, to me, just the oh my goodness, Texas is back victory.
Yeah, I will say this. After they won, I was like, oh, they're going to rank them back inside the top 20, aren't they? They're going to do that. They're probably them top 15. So to see them at 21 is a surprise to me, like a pleasant surprise, because I knew they were going to put them back in the rankings. It was just, are they going to put them really high? So this is a nice surprise. Memphis, I like seeing getting moved up. Cincinnati, welcome. And like I said, Nebraska and Cincinnati, a pleasant surprise. And I know all the people who want to be like, well, Nebraska beat Cincinnati in week 1. How come Nebraska's not ahead of them? Things have changed dramatically for both teams since that game. So I have no issue with this whatsoever. The only thing, again, when you talk about maybe Texas in general being ranked is kind of a, but I kind of knew they were going to be ranked after entering this week. I had no issues.
That's true. But look, let's take a look at our game previews and our game picks. And look, I'll be honest with you. The regular watchers, the viewers, you're going to notice we're going to be a little bit light on game previews today. That's because we got a lot of game picks this week.
Yeah.
We got a lot of good
This is a loaded weekend. Loaded weekend.
Not to mention, I think there could be some trap games lingering here.
Yeah.
That we're going to get into. But let's start with the game previews where we always start. We've got unranked Louisville versus number 2 Miami. And look, the big thing that stands out to me in this game is, look, Louisville only has the 1 loss. And they're coming in against Miami. Miami's a good team. They've been winning big, not really any contests. I'm worried. Some of these teams with all the big games on the schedule, you're thinking maybe I got an easy week. But I will say this much. Louisville, since Brahms gotten there, they've been good. They've been competitive. They've been one of the better teams in the ACC since he's gotten there. But these are the games where they struggle the most. These big games have a chance to make a point and make a statement. And they just haven't gotten the job done. Can they turn that corner? And can they turn it around? And better yet, I know it wasn't exactly at this point last season, but can Miami avoid some of the silly losses like they had last year that completely derailed their ACC and college football playoff hopes?
I was about to say, let's not forget the Virginia Tech Miami game on a Friday night last year. So with it being at home, it's hard for me to pick them. Again, the difference I think this year, again, with Miami is their defense is just so good. I find it really hard to doubt them in this game. But this Louisville offense has been very solid. So it's going to be a good test for the Miami defense. That's truly the matchup that matters, because I think Miami can score the points if they need to. But what can this Louisville offense do against this Miami defense? Because this Miami defense has dominated pretty much every single team they have played this year. That's the matchup I look forward to watching the most in this game on Friday night.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a blast. I like it. I'll be looking out for it. Then we've got number 7 Texas Tech versus recently unranked Arizona State. But look, like you said, getting Sam Levitt back in this game, could be absolutely huge, could definitely make this a game. But Texas Tech's looked good. But again, you can't get caught sleeping. I don't think I can really compare this to a real trap game because Arizona State's one of those teams that's definitely on the border of top 25. And it's definitely a team that's battling for a top spot in the Big 12.
Mhm.
But I think Texas Tech will come prepared. But I'm interested to see what happens in this game, especially if Sam Levitt is able to play. Will we see the
Yeah.
first and biggest test for this Texas Tech defense?
Yeah. I got actually Pete Thamel posted something like while we were talking there. He said Arizona State QB Sam Levitt is expected to be probable for the Sun Devils and is in line to play Saturday against Texas Tech. He looked improved in practice this week as he's battled through a lower body injury. So there's the thing right there. Now, if Sam Levitt plays, this is an entirely different ball game. I'll just say it like it is. If
Great.
Sam Levitt plays, because he's been so good, but with him not being 100%, that has me a bit worried, especially with how good this Texas Tech defensive line is. His mobility might actually be something that gives him a chance. So it'll have to come down to it. But I will say this, I'll guarantee this. This will not be Texas. This will be Texas Tech's first win that is not by 24 or more points. It'll be a
Okay.
little bit closer than that. I'm not going to say it's going to be close, but it will be closer than 24 points. I'll leave it at that.
My next game, I think this could be a huge trap game. Number 14 OU versus South Carolina
Yeah.
this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Look, OU has got to get it right. They've got to make a quick adjustment because you and I both agree 8 spots dropping was gracious after their loss last week. Very gracious from the AP poll. You can't lose this game or you'll be outside of the top 25 like
Mm-hmm.
that. They've had no hesitancy doing that. When Texas started their losing streak, when Penn State started their losing streak, they will drop you from this top 25 so fast.
Yep.
So you've got to come out and you've got to win, and that's not easy. This game is going to be on the road, I believe.
Yep.
And you're going to be playing against one of the more talented quarterbacks in college football in the North Sellers. Look, South Carolina hasn't been as good as I hoped them to be, but they're a talented team, and you certainly can't look past them. You've got to come out and play your best football against the Gamecocks.
Yeah, fortunate thing for Oklahoma is they avoided a night game at South Carolina. If this was a night game, I'd say you're screwed, Oklahoma. You don't got a shot here. With it being 11:45 a.m. kickoff, it kind of gives them more of a chance. But talking about with South Carolina, who's going to step up besides the North Sellers? We kind of saw this matchup, really, if I'm being honest, last week when South Carolina went to play at LSU. It was a defensive battle. And, they really struggled offensively going against an elite defense. They're going against another elite defense in Oklahoma this week. The difference being at home. But the big thing with South Carolina, Austin, as y'all know, Beamer ball. Can the special teams make some plays to really shift this? Could a blocked punt happen? A blocked field goal, punt return, touchdown? Something like that. Can some Beamer ball magic happen? That can truly be the difference in this game if it does happen. And I think that does need to happen for South Carolina to win, and I think it's entirely possible. But John Mateer, look, they've got to get other people involved in this offense because South Carolina's solid defensively. They've got to get other people involved. Otherwise, South Carolina can win this game.
Do we know what's going on with Jay Nott? It was 1 carry for 2 yards last week.
I tried figuring it out, and I thought I had it figured out, but I'm like, no, he's held down. It's just crazy. I don't know what's going to happen there. But again, that'll be the story. Is these are two teams with quarterbacks that carry the offenses. And if these defenses can have field days against them, we might be in for a really low scoring. What, over under 43.5? I might recommend the under there. This could be a low scoring affair.
Agreed. Our last game preview here. We're looking at Baylor, TCU. Look, two teams that have got themselves right in the mix of this crazy Big 12 playoff picture. One team's going to move one step closer. One team's going to take one step back. Thoughts on this matchup of two pretty fun offenses to watch?
Yeah, please give us a repeat of 2014 Baylor TCU, please.
Agreed.
Please let that happen. I need that. I need another 61-58 thriller on my TV in the afternoon. No, these are two really good offenses. Really two of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the country, for being honest, in the two guys in this matchup. Um, and I'll be honest with you, I will probably end up going in this matchup if I had to lean probably with a more desperate team, which I think is Baylor, given their standard, because I know Kansas State just lost, or TCU just lost to Kansas State last week. But I feel like Baylor, obviously, what's on the line with Dave Aranda and this coaching staff, if this season's not a successful one, I would probably lean them in the matchup. But again, high scoring affair, 65 and a half. Yeah, that seems valid. I expect a lot of points. And which quarterback can make the plays late? This might be a game where Austin, whichever guy has the ball last, will truly be the winner of this game.
Agreed. That's kind of the way these Big 12 shootouts usually tend to end. But get into our game picks. We've got a huge slate. Look, and
Yeah.
we're going to start with my biased pick right away. Number 20 USC heading to South Bend to take on number 13 Notre Dame. I'm going to take Notre Dame. They're my team. I think they're the better team on paper. They've kind of found their groove. But look, this is not going to be a pushover game against USC. This offense looks better than it has all season. What are your thoughts on this one?
Um, Again, I think it's going to be key. I think USC needs to be able to run the football in this game. If USC can't run the ball, then it's going to be a wrap. Jaden Mayava, as great as he is, won't be able to do everything. Um, Again, what can King Miller do in this game to kind of repeat that performance against Michigan? Because Michigan's had a good defense, but different style here with Notre Dame. I would kind of say this. I expect this will be a little bit more low scoring affair than people think. 61 and a half, I think, is a little bit too much there. Two offenses, I think that if USC can run the ball, they can kind of slow the pace of the game down, give them a chance. And I think USC's defense gives them a chance. But that that two-headed monster at running back for Notre Dame is too much for me to bet against. I'm going to pick Notre Dame to win the game. I'll say USC covers, but Notre Dame gets the win at home.
Then we've got number 10 LSU heading up to Nashville to face number 17 Vandy. Who do you got in this one?
Woo, man. I think I saw, I don't know if it's the stat I remember officially, but I think a stat was this is the first time Vandy's favored over LSU since like the 1940s or 50s.
Oh my
It was
goodness.
somewhere in there. It's just stunning. Two, again, solid defenses, two very solid defenses, and two quarterbacks who have potential. I'm going to pick Vandy in this game just because they have the productive offense. I still have yet to see LSU with a productive offense. I think the defense for LSU will give them a very good chance to win, but I'm going to go with the more productive offense, and that's the Vanderbilt Commodores.
I agree. I think when you got to take an offense that's going to make a play at the end of a game I think could be close, I'm going to ride with Vandy and what they can do. Pavia is a special talent. I
Mm-hmm.
think we both can agree on that. And while there's some special talents on this LSU defense, I just don't know that this LSU offense is going to be able to make those
Exactly.
big plays.
That's been the story with LSU is, yeah, their defense is going to give you a chance, but the offense, that's because the offense can only score like 17 points, 20 points in a game.
Yeah. We're going to see what happens with this team, but I like Vandy in this game. Then we've got number 5 Ole Miss versus number 9 Georgia. And look, both of these teams last week almost slipped up and made an oopsie. This could have been a very different rankings matchup had their games gone a little bit of a different way. But both teams win. They maintain spots in the top 10. And now they clash for a big matchup here. Who do you got?
Let me just say this my thoughts on the Auburn Georgia game. There's my thoughts on the Auburn Georgia game. We'll just leave it at that, ladies and
How was
gentlemen.
that Auburn fumble, not a touchdown?
And also, how is this not calling for a timeout? It was just. But going back to the actual game we're talking about here, I'm curious because this is Trinidad Chambliss, who I'm assuming is going to be starting again. This is his first road start at Ole Miss,
Wow.
and it's in Athens. That's already something to keep an eye on. But this Georgia defensive line has not been anything truly special. They haven't really pressured the quarterback much. So my thing here is if Ole Miss gets up early, this could be a blowout. I'm just going to be honest with you. If Ole Miss gets up early, they could blow Georgia out in this game. But Ladies and gentlemen, if there is one thing I am never going to do is doubt Kirby Smart at home. That's just not going to happen. Until I'm proven otherwise, it's not going to happen. I'm going to pick Georgia to win the game, kind of similar to the USC one. Georgia wins, but Ole Miss covers a 7.5 point spread. I think it'll be close, but I'm not doubting Kirby Smart at home.
Well, I'm glad we're going to go different. It feels like it's been a while that we've been different, but I'm going to go with Ole Miss in this one. I like Georgia. I think they've played some pretty good football. Again, though, I just don't know how consistent this Georgia offense can be. Gunnar
Fair.
Stockton
That's
has
valid.
some games where he looks really good, and it looks like he's starting to learn this offense and kind of get a feel. And then other games where you just don't really know what's going on with him. Look, it's going to be a tough environment for Chambliss. Having been to a top 10 matchup in Athens before, the environment is crazy and it's going to be tough to play in. But clearly, we've seen this guy's got nerves of steel. He's been able to
Mhm.
go out there and be an all-star, just awesome for Ole Miss. I don't think this will be anything different. I think we'll see a big win for Ole Miss. I think they're going to win by 7+ in this one. I like Ole
All
Miss
right.
over Georgia. Our next matchup, staying in the SEC, we've got number 11 Tennessee taking on number 6 Alabama, and in recent years, these games have been classics between these two.
Hmm.
Who
Yeah.
do you got?
I really there's a part of me that thinks Tennessee has a chance here, but again, that defense has me so concerned. And with the way Ty Simpson has been throwing the football lately, I think that's a really big positive and gives Alabama a really good chance to win this game comfortably. Um, but my question is Jam Miller. He got injured in that game against Missouri. I don't know if he's officially playing or if he's not. We've seen this Bama offense, Austin. When it doesn't have Jam Miller, it's a different offense. So that's the question mark for me. I'm going to pick Alabama mainly because, again, I think Ty Simpson's been throwing the ball so well, and I just don't trust this Tennessee secondary or defense to really be able to stop them. If Tennessee wants to win, it's got to be a high scoring affair, and they got to match Bama score for score. But I'm going to roll with Alabama to get the win at home.
Yeah, I think Alabama's going to be able to make the stops. I think the difference between this Alabama team and the Alabama team last year is the maturity, especially on the defensive end. We saw a lot of stupid, senseless penalties from this Alabama team last year, especially for some reason on the defensive side of the ball, guys just making bad decisions. Stuff we said, wouldn't have happened with Nick Saban on the team. I'm glad that's been kind of reined in and DeBoer's gotten control of it because this is a talented defense and they can make a difference. Tennessee's just not going to be able to get the stops in this game. I think this could be a really high scoring affair, but Alabama's going to make the stop in the big moment to get the job done. I would take the over in this game. Honestly, I think we might see these guys just flamethrow it down the field. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to take Alabama to win in this one. And our last game pick, you talked about it. Holy War, number 23 Utah versus number 15 BYU. Uh, this is going to be a crazy matchup for the Big 12. To go with a weekend of crazy matchups, not just in this conference, but all over college football. Who do you got winning this game? I know I'll be tuning in for this one.
Yeah, what a night slate this is in general. USC, Notre Dame, Tennessee, Alabama, and then you got the Holy War, all three different channels. This is where YouTube TV and that the 4 game option, the multi-view
You're
option will
not
come in
kidding.
handy really nicely. Um, Two sides again. These are two teams that I think are very evenly matched. It's always a close matchup in the Holy War, no matter what the records are. On one hand, it's really tough to pick against BYU at home on a Saturday night. It's really hard for me to pick against them. But on the other, this Devon Dampier and this Utah offense has been so tough to stop, especially the ground game. This is basically a flip of the coin for me. These two teams are evenly matched on both sides. I'm going to lean Utah because I believe in Devon Dampier and this offense to be able to make some plays. But I mean, like I said, it's a coin flip of a game. I really don't know what to expect here. I would not be shocked if BYU won at home. I really don't know what's going to happen, and I look forward to seeing it play out.
Yeah, this is going to be an awesome, fun game. This game is pretty fun the last few years. Um, but these two teams are going to clash. It's going to be a great game, a great time. But look, the Big 12 has a way of making itself interesting and making itself fun. And what's the more fun outcome for the Big 12 in this pursuit of the Big 12 title? Unfortunately, that means BYU has to lose this game. Look, I'm going with what is just and right and natural in this world. And what is natural in this world is 7 teams will vie for a spot in the Big 12 championship at the end of the season. And the only way that happens, there's only one reality where that happens. That one reality is Utah beats BYU in this game. I like Utah in this game. It's close, like you said, but I like Utah a little bit better offensively. I think they come in this rivalry game heated and they play spoiler and get a big win in a really fun environment. Now let's take it to a segment I've gone just absolutely cold in once more. Bad start to the season, good middle. We're falling off the rails again, but it's bet of the week. I hope you're not betting with the Bold Take podcast this season. I'll be completely
Yeah, don't do it. You could fade us if you really want to. You could fade us.
Yeah, I think that's the point to play. But what do you got? What are you feeling this week?
So let me say Northern Illinois, that was such a disgusting bet that I feel honestly I was not shocked that it lost. Let me say, Austin, coming into the show right whenever we got started, I was getting ready. My bet of the week was going to be Mississippi State plus 9.5 against Florida. I was going to pick that. And then as we're going doing the show, I checked Twitter. Florida head coach Billy Napier could be fired as soon as this weekend. That's all I need to see. That's all I need to see. I'm not making that bet. I'm not betting against Billy Napier with his job on the line. That's just not going to happen. I may be an idiot.
Billy, he's about to be fired.
I may be an idiot, but I'm not stupid. I'm not doing that. So I'm going with my backup plan. You heard me talk about it. Give me USC Notre Dame under 61.5. I think this will be a lot more low scoring than people think it will be. I think that Notre Dame defense has gotten better in the last couple of weeks. I think that USC defense is solid. Give me under 61.5 in USC Notre Dame. I wanted to go with you Mississippi State, but the reports had to come out and say Billy was getting fired. I'm sorry.
He's going to beat the getting fired allegations. He always does. Look, I don't know what it was. I was looking around, and I was like, I need to get back to what I'm good at in college football, and that's the huge spread, the huge unrealistic spreads. And I was looking around at some big spreads, and I saw a plus 16.5 in this ball game. And then I thought, you know what? I had a moment where a light beamed down on me from the heavens, and a soft, angelic voice whispered in my ear, my bet of the week, UMass money line versus Buffalo. They get their first win of the season. They take them down. Welcome to the MAC, UMass. They are going to do it.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm possessed to do it. I am just the instrument to spew this good news.
Wow, UMass money line against that is insane, and that is an awesome bet. Honestly, I had no idea where you were going to lean with this. There were so many different ones I didn't know, but wow. Yeah, let's go UMass. Come on, give them something. Give them something good, UMass. Come on, give your fans something good.
I got to get back on the roll. I got to get back into it. Look, UAB plus 21.5 was one I was lingering in on.
That's kind of where I thought you were leaning because they just fired Trent Dilfer. And I was like, that would be a move that could make some sense. They just fired the coach, so I could have seen that be an argument for it.
But yeah, I don't know what it was. Something actually spoke to me and told me
wow,
was the pick.
Man, so you got an under, and then you got UMass money line. I mean, could you want anything else from a Bold Take podcast bet of the week? Could you really want anything else?
That's what it's all about. And that's what college football is all about. But we want to thank you guys for listening. It's been a treat, as always. That's Austin Wader. I'm Austin Hill. We'll have an NFL episode coming out soon. But for now, we want to thank you for listening.